Aloha, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Warrior Women in the World of Entrepreneurship podcast. I'm your host, Kolo, black belt in Bruce Lee's art and concept of Jeet Kune Do under Sifu Dan Anderson in New York City. I'm also an apprentice instructor of Li Jun Fang Kung Fu and Jeet Kune Do and the Filipino martial arts under Guru Dan Inosanto. I'm also the founder of the Tasco Fit Martial Arts and Fitness School here in Hawaii. So the podcast that you're listening to here focuses on interviewing warrior women entrepreneurs throughout the world to shed some light on the realities, the good, the bad, and the ugly of running one's own business. This podcast has become a mecca of information that is incredibly useful to current, aspiring, and even seasoned entrepreneurs. We hope that you give each episode a listen, and please remember to like, subscribe, and share your favorite episodes. It helps us so much, and it helps us be able to bring on more and more entrepreneurs out there to help all of us, really, myself included. So please feel free to tag us in your posts to let us know which episode or episodes resonated with you most. Before we get to today's show, we want to share with you some of our favorite brands and products that we've used for our own business and personal use. The first that we're going to spotlight is Panty Promise. So Panty Promise is known as the first clean panty brand, meaning that it's organic cotton seamless panties that are optimum for feminine health and hygiene. They are the most comfortable panty that I personally have ever worn, and as an athlete, especially the material that you're wearing as your undergarments while training can really affect your hygiene. So you can go check out their products at pantypromise.com and use our special discount offer code TASCOFIT. So it's all capitals, TASKOFIT when you check out. So every little bit helps, and these panties will be one of the best things that you've ever did for yourself, your hygiene, and your comfort in your daily life. We also want to bring your attention to one of our most used fitness tools, both in the gym and on the go, is the Anchor Fitness portable cable system. So this product is dynamic, it's lightweight, and is highly effective in giving a heavy or light draw weight, depending on what your goal is and what you're doing either for yourself or your clients. And they have so many accessory options that you can use, you can purchase there. So definitely go and check them out at anchortraining.com. You can use our code TASCOFIT11, so very similar to the other one. So it's TASKOFIT11 for any offer, for any order that's above $499. So you'll get that $50 discount off of that, and it'll definitely save you some money on like a big cable machine. This is so useful. I've used it so much either with my own business, Tasco Fit Martial Arts and Fitness, as well as with the Hawaii Hurling team. All right, guys. So these are just some that they're always linked in our description as well. So please be sure to go back into those episodes and check them out there if you need a reference. For now, enjoy the show. Aloha, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Warrior Women in the World of Entrepreneurship podcast. I'm your host, Kolo, and I'm here with another incredible warrior woman entrepreneur, Ms. Caitlin Harper. She's a strategist, speaker, advisor, writer, and founder of Commcoterie. I keep putting a very French accent on it. Commcoterie.
Very French.
Thank you. Commcoterie, which is a change management communication consultancy. She's also the founder of Renegade Reading Series, which is the longest running emerging writing readers series in New York City. So Caitlin earned her BA in English, summa cum laude from the University of Florida with minors in psychology, linguistics, and entrepreneurship, and also her MFA in creative writing, summa cum laude from the New School in New York City. She's the author of the young adult novel, It Will Set You Free, that you can find on Indiebound, and is currently working on her second novel, which we'll get an update for her in this interview. And she's actually, interestingly enough, an independent academic scholar, mostly about Harry Potter. And she says, yes, it's a real thing. And she specializes in Quidditch and also frequently discusses humor in the series, the book's impact on fandoms and fan culture and fan activism. So I actually want to really kind of even get into that later into this interview as well, because I think those things are super important with how they motivate people and how they allow people to be inspired and dream and go forth and just, again, like create their own business, whatever it is that motivates you. So Caitlin is currently living in New York City, just moved to Manhattan. She's unsure of how she feels about this. So she's there with her husband, her daughter, and her cat. and we are so happy to have her on the podcast today. So Caitlin, thank you so much for being on here and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Colo. This is so cool. I love this podcast. I'm really excited.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. And can you just tell us a little bit more about Commcoterie, as you were correcting me on?
Yes.
And just tell us how you got started with that.
Yeah. So it's gone through kind of a lot of changes, even if in its last couple of years, or its first couple of years, over the last couple of years. But yeah, I started off when I was working in-house. I was kind of doing a lot of things. I was heading up operations and culture and communications and facilities and people experience and all of these things together. And when I left my in-house role, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with Commcoterie. So Commcoterie is like communications, and a coterie is like an exclusive group of people who all believe the same thing or enjoy the same thing. And that just describes the fact that I wanted to do something with communication. So for me, communication is the most important part of the multi-hyphenate job that I had. So I was like, I really want to focus on communication. And I didn't know whether that was, helping teams communicate better, whether I was going to be teaching, whether I was going to be coaching, whether I was going to be doing strategy. I was doing a lot of different things. I designed a peer coaching program that taught people how to use professional coaching techniques in everyday conversations. And I was like, okay, I need to figure out what I'm doing. And I love change management communication. I love strategizing how to communicate change more effectively at organizations so people can live their lives and do their jobs. And that's what I'm doing now. So it took a couple of years to refine what it was. But the more I've narrowed my niche and really figured out exactly what I want to be doing, the more my business has grown. So I know I'm moving in that right direction.
And you've been doing this for the past 15 years, but when was it that you officially founded Commcoterie?
In 2020.
In 2020. Yeah, a lot of people have had on
very
here too.
Exciting. In 2020, I had only really intended to take off a couple months and work on my novel and whatever, recharge. And then I was going to get a head of internal comms role or something at somewhere. And then places that I was interviewing were going out of business in March and April of 2020. And I was like, I don't know if this is the best course of action. And there was hiring freezes and all this stuff. And my husband was like, I think this is a good time for you to try doing your own thing. And I was like, in this economy, I don't know, in this state of the world, I don't know if that's and then it was more is there when will there be a better time?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just started kind of just saying, I was like, oh, I'm freelancing, right? I'll take some clients. I'm freelancing, I'll do a lot of things. I was just doing anything with the written word at an organization, basically. And more just people that I knew were reaching out, being like, can we just get your help on this thing? And then it morphed from there. Yeah.
It's awesome. So just word of mouth too, it starts, and then you just are just little, not odd jobs, I don't want to say that, but kind of
I know,
just finding what works, and suddenly you're kind of have a clientele, and then you can keep going with that. So do you work more with big companies or more small, or
it totally depends. I am very industry and size agnostic, because what I'm doing is this change management communication, which, to be honest, is it's the same. People are the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Despite our differences, people are the same. Buckets of people are the same, kind of.
Yeah.
And brains work. I mean, obviously brains work a lot of different ways, but at their core, brains are brains. So the way that I'm getting different types of people to change their behavior and change their thought process and do something differently at work is the same.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm, doing something really technical where it takes a lot of expertise in a field, or in a specific type of industry. But I kind of just apply the same principles to all different sizes. In terms of how I'm working, when I have personal clients that I'm working with by myself, It's usually a smaller orgs just because it's just me.
Mm-hmm.
But I collaborate a lot with other consultants. So because I do communication strategy, I collaborate with consultants who do diversity, equity, and inclusion, or do leadership training, or do other forms of organizational culture transformation. And I do the communication strategy for that work. So for those clients, we can tackle bigger projects just because there's more people working on the project.
So this is year number 3 then for you.
It is. Yeah.
Crazy, right? So
yeah.
How have you been able to grow and sustain? Like, where are you now versus when you started? Like, how many clients do you have now? And do you feel comfortable with your business at the moment? Or is it still kind of like, you know?
I'm just feeling comfortable now. So I like to be like really transparent with how I did the past few years, because I feel like that people just see like on LinkedIn, you know, like, oh, I'm doing this and blah, blah, blah. Like, so I left my role. I was like in the midst of the pandemic, right? Yeah. Freaking out just like everybody else, being like, what is going on? I was like blogging and like doing, you know, other things, like all sorts of stuff. And then in the fall of 2020, insanely, we started doing IVF because I was like, the baby thing is not working.
Yeah.
What do we do? And it was like still pandemic time. So I had like a pandemic IVF experience, which was just terrible. And then luckily we got pregnant, and I had taken like while I was doing IVF, I had taken a huge consulting contract with a really, really, really big company that was a big contract.
Wow.
Like 30 hours a week, basically. And it took up the 30 hours a week, took up the majority of my time.
Yep.
So I was doing that the majority of the time, doing IVF, being pregnant, having a horrible first trimester, et cetera, and then doing my business, the Commcoterie side of things on the side. So the consulting contract was what I do. It was communication strategy and, you know, leadership, communication, coaching, and change management communication strategy, but it was with just one client. So it didn't feel as entrepreneurial as the rest of my work.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a set in stone kind of thing. So it didn't feel entrepreneurial for that reason as well. I wasn't getting new business or anything like that. It was kind of set. So I did that all of 2021 because I had a newborn and an infant. And I was like, all of 2021. I was pregnant all of 2021. What is the timeline? I was pregnant all of 2021. So I was doing that because I wasn't sure. Like, I was really stressed out. It was my first kid. We had to do the IVF thing. So I was like, anything could happen, you know, things could turn out a lot differently than you intended. And I wanted to make sure that the baby was fine and healthy before I was like, I'm fully an entrepreneur and a risk taker. So I kept this big contract through when she started daycare in spring of 2022. So then she was in daycare and the business entrepreneur side was growing. Like I was doing a lot of workshops at the time because I was like, I can sell workshops. People know what they are. And I can do them, right? I can do them in an hour. And I was just selling a lot of workshops, doing a lot of speaking, and then doing this giant contract with this big company. And I was like, I kind of want to drop that contract and go fully entrepreneur and do real communication strategy work rather than feeling like I'm an employee again.
Yeah.
So that was actually a year ago.
Wow.
So like Commcoterie as it exists today is only a year old. So when people ask me, oh, this is actually kind of like the 4th year, right? Like if you're counting like all of 2023, like when 2023 is over, that will be 4 years of business. But I'm like, I don't really have a 4-year-old business. Do you know what I mean? So I don't like to, when other entrepreneurs are like, oh my gosh, like I want what you have, or you look like you're doing so well. I'm like, this is the reality of the situation is this is cobbled together. There's a lot of things going on. So for the past year, I've been fully getting all my own clients, doing all my biz dev, like focusing full on Commcoterie, the business, growing the business. And in 2022, it was still kind of a mess where I was like saying yes to a lot of things. You know, I didn't have my offers all sorted out. But I was selling. So I was like, okay, like, is this what I want to do? Not is the business what I want to do, but like, do the workshops what I want to do? Are these topics the ones I want to talk about? Are these companies the ones I want to work with? And I would say in the fall of 2022, I have a really awesome network of other entrepreneurs that I'm friends with now. And they helped me really narrow down my focus and figure out exactly the direction I wanted to go in. And really, since I've started making those decisions, the business has grown. So by the end of May, I will have made as much as I did in all of 2022.
Wow. How integral was it finding those other entrepreneurs?
Essential. I feel like that's on like all the roundup lists of like advice for like whatever. But like I went to school for writing, got my MFA. So I have a lot of freelance writer friends and people that I know in my network, and that, like, I love them. But like the I'm going to sell a piece for $250 vibe is not what like sends my kid to daycare.
Yeah.
So, and pays my New York rent. And I was like, that's not a business. You're freelancing or you're side gigging or something like that. So I was like, I need to have a business.
Yeah.
But I also am not trying to grow some multi-million-dollar firm.
Right.
So meeting these solopreneurs, even people who have small agencies, some of my friends are solopreneurs and they make a ton of money. But there is only so much you can do alone. So that sort of mindset where these women it's mostly women, were really driven, successful, awesome entrepreneurs, and we can ask each other for advice and we can lean on each other is really helpful.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can also get them on this podcast at some stage too.
Oh my gosh, they would love it. Everyone loves a podcast interview.
Yeah. So the reason I'm asking that though is because that is what this podcast is and what it aims to be for everyone out there, because maybe people don't know or don't have that community or don't know where to find it. So this can be your start. This can be, even if you found your community, a nice like accessory in order to be able to hear other people's stories and how they were able to build themselves. And not only that, but if you guys are out there and you're looking to work with somebody or looking to find somebody in this like a certain business, then please definitely reach out and we can always like link everybody up. And I think that's super important. But we are your community as well to be able to find those answers that you might be looking for or maybe didn't think of. So definitely give, obviously this episode a listen, which is super important, and all the other entrepreneurs that are on here, because you never know like what little gems might click for you. So, and that's what Caitlin found as well with your community, right? Like they helped you out to be able to kind of just identify what maybe you need to change or continue on doing. So all that being said, so what was your biggest struggle with building this business? We may have touched upon it a little bit, but like, what was your like, oh crap moment?
Yeah. I would say I was excited when I dropped the big contract and it was like, okay, now it's all me. But I was a little bit like, oh my gosh, like there's I'm lucky. Like my husband works full time, has an awesome job. Like, that's another thing. I have a partner who has health insurance. Yeah. So like my safety net is there. Like we're really lucky and have a nice privileged life. But on a personal note, I mean, I say, oh shit, like every single day. I'm trying to get out of that mode, like I think, excuse me, tracking my, revenue and keeping track of like what I'm actually doing and what I'm achieving has been really important. And again, this is like, you'll see it on like some stupid rundown list of like whatever, but it is true. Like I would be like, I haven't sold anything in weeks. And then I like look at my calendar and be like, I sold something last Tuesday. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, I have no idea. Or I'd be like, oh my gosh, like nothing's come in my bank account, you know, for the past month or whatever. And I'm like, okay, yeah, because in like 2 months ago, you sold a 3-month contract, right?
Yeah.
And it's a 50-50 payment. So like, no, there hasn't been bank activity because you're focusing on this one thing. And just like having, even like I keep my accounting spreadsheet for my accountant. Oh, getting an accountant just to do my taxes, not to manage my whole thing, because really there's not, it's a consultancy. So yeah. I don't have a ton of expenses and I get paid a couple times a year, but it's not like I'm not selling, you know, widgets or something.
Sure.
So there's not a ton of accounting that goes on, but getting someone to file my taxes and me not having to worry about it, she makes sure that all my expenses are done properly, and you know, my child tax credit and all that stuff. Yeah. Like literally just this spreadsheet that I keep for her, like adding my monthly revenue goals on that. Yeah. And then putting in a formula that tells me how much I have to go. And then it turns a different color when I've hit it. That helped my mental health. Yeah. Like every time I feel crappy, I can just pull that up and be like, oh, I'm in the green again. Like, Caitlin, you need to chill. Like, yes, you can go grocery shopping during the day, or you can do yoga or whatever. Like, I don't think those should be rewards for doing well, but it makes it a lot easier to relax, you know.
What's the spreadsheet that you use? Is it something that they created?
Literally on Excel? No, okay. I did it. Yeah. It's nothing fancy. The only formulas in it are like sums.
Yeah.
Like it's just sum minus plus. That's it.
I gotta see in that
the color class. I do. The color I do manually. I like bing green, like the color's done. It goes from gray to green, and I'm like, you're awesome.
Yeah. Which stuff like that is, like you said, absolutely super important, and something that I need and needed and still need. And now I'm only just getting into sitting down and writing it out. It's like, I need to kind of play with that a little bit more, because my cousins are more savvy on the Excel sheets. Like I said, I did not do well in college in that class. I don't know why. I just, like I said, I'm a language major. I don't speak computer. Like,
yeah, you're like, that's not my jam.
No, and I wanted it to be, but I just could not fathom it. So I'm not, you know, that's my weakness, and I'm starting to just try to just make it simple and just find one thing. I think it starts getting a little bit more complicated when there's too many options thrown at you. And then all of a sudden you're like, one you try and you're like, I don't know if that's the right one. So then you go for another one, and then it's like, oh,
you spend a lot of time setting them all up. I know. Mm-hmm. So like, I think when you're, especially early on, when you think you're doing it wrong, you want to make sure you're making all the right decisions about that sort of thing. And there's like certain things where you're like, it's going to be a huge hassle. Like if you pick a different website host or something. Yeah. And then a year later, you're like, I hate this website host. Yep. Figuring out another website, like building another website, is going to be a hassle. But stuff like, should I do my accounting in Excel spreadsheet or not, is nothing. That's an hour's worth of frustration if you want to now do QuickBooks. Like, I'm always like, I mean, I'm glad, I guess, there are a lot of systems in the world to choose from. I always start with the simplest system. I never invest in or figure out the most difficult system first. Yeah. With all its bells and whistles, because it's just going to be a hassle. And in terms of like all this tracking as well, like something I actually wish I had done earlier was track my revenue, because even when, especially when I wasn't making, like I would make like $250 for a workshop or something. And now I'm like, no, that's not what I charge now. But like, it's good to see the growth. And I don't think I tracked, I mean, I did for my taxes, but I didn't track as much. I didn't track in 2020 or 2021. I didn't start doing it until last year. Yeah. And this year is when I started like tracking my progress. I would only do like retroactive, like tracking for my accountant. But like, even knowing that you made $20 instead of $10 feels good. And I didn't do that for myself, because I was like, you're not making that much money, so you don't need to track anything. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but what are you tracking for? Right? Like, and I was like, well, I'm only tracking for my accountant. And I was like, no, you're tracking to feel good about yourself. Like, right? Like, so figuring out like what you're feeling crappy about and what's stressing you out, and then solving that problem for yourself And it just so happens to be that it helps your accountant and it helps you like even better, right?
Yeah.
So you're not doing something for nothing or one thing.
100.
It's
Yeah,
like 2 birds with
100%.
one stone. Yeah.
I think it's super important, like you said too, like, why are you feeling crappy? It's like, oh, I don't know, because you're spending like $40-$50 a week at Starbucks, you know, and then you like get tired of writing Starbucks over and over again. So you're like, you know what? I'm really going to just stop going because I don't want to write this anymore in here.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not going to do it.
Let alone the bank. It's just like, I don't want to keep writing this freaking number.
Yeah.
So it definitely helps for that. So it's an accountability, but it's super important. So you said that you've had that safety because you have your partner there, which is amazing. And thank you for being so open about that, because I think it's important that entrepreneurs know that, like, what's the reality of the situation? This is how they're able to do that. That doesn't mean that you cannot, as a single person. I'm single. Like, this is,
right.
you know, I'm fighting my battles here, but I'm not alone. Just because I'm single doesn't mean I'm alone. Again, I have this community here that we're building together, this warrior women in the world of entrepreneurship, and just having these conversations with everyone is super helpful because it's just getting me to that next step. And again, the change for me is, yes, I've started to account. Somebody else said, okay, they do financial Fridays or financial Friday. I was like, I love that. It's so simple. And it sounds so like nice together. You have the FF and like, I don't know, it just needed to sound melodious to me. And now I can do it. Like, so it's a good reminder of like, okay, here's the day that you should be able to do these things. And for other people, they're probably like, yeah, duh, what are you guys just getting on this? It's like, yeah, but like, especially in New York or coming from New York, life does happen so fast, and you're honestly just like literally just duking it out every day. Even if you enjoy it, it's still that rush of life, and it's lovely. It's good. It's fun. It's that excitement that we like to feel in our lives. But at the same time, when we're overwhelmed or just whelmed with other things, you're not going to necessarily focus on, okay, that timing to be able to devote to that, because you're like, I have more important things to do. I just need to make this money. If I put my time to writing this stuff down, I'm not going to be making money. And then meanwhile, you're just going to go and like relax anyway, because you think that you need to recharge and rest. So then you don't do anything.
Right.
But so you are no longer working for anyone else. You are primarily just your own business owner.
Yeah.
In this moment.
Now. Yep.
Now. And you said that's just been in the last year?
Yeah.
No, that's been since 2020.
I mean, it's been since 2020. Yeah.
But you had that single contract, and it still felt like you were working for somebody else.
Yeah, that was just the vibe. I mean, they were great, but I was like, they were like, oh, you're on the team. And I'm like, I don't work here. And they're like, what? Yeah, you do. And I'm like, no, I don't work here. Like, I don't.
She doesn't even go here.
I know. That's exactly what it was like. I was saying it to myself. I was like, Caitlin doesn't go here. Like, stop acting like I do. And they just like weren't, I mean, they treated me like an employee in like good ways and bad ways. Like, they would invite me to like every single meeting. I'd be like, is this how you want to spend your hour? And they were like, what are you talking about? I was like, I am a consultant.
Yeah.
Like, this is not the best use of my time for you. But they were just like, whatever. So I was like, this is not the kind of meetings that I want to be in. I love you. Bye. So, yeah.
But that's perfect too, because a lot of us have felt that, you know, that this could have been an email meeting, or when there's too many emails, this could have been a really quick meeting. Like, it's
right. They're like, well, it's booked till 5, so let's keep talking. And I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah. No, that's, you want quality of time, not quantity.
Yeah.
And so sorry, going all over the place here. So what was it that finally did give you that motivation, other than your husband, you know, saying like, now might be the time, and also the pandemic kind of just like slingshotting all of us into like, oh wow, there can be a quality of life and we can do for ourselves rather than just these big corporations. And listen, nothing wrong with big corporations. Is that where, if that's where you're at, that's where you're comfortable, you're making what you want to make, and you're happy with life, amazing, perfect. Like, no judgment here. I don't want to do that. Like, I want to be able to do for myself. I want to be able to keep learning and keep growing. And there are growing pains, of course, but you know, in the end, I'm the leader here. So, you know, like, but also it's like, you can't lead without learning how to follow. So it's important to be able to have those mentors that you follow, and whether that's in corporate or in another small business, I think it's super important. And, you know, if you have the the honor to be able to have somebody like that. It's incredible. So, and that was my case too in martial arts. What was your motivation other than pandemic and your husband telling you? There must have been a thought in your mind beforehand.
Yeah, I was like, every time I read a job description, I could like, I wasn't feeling that at first, but I was like, listen, you need to remember what it felt like to work for someone else. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not that anyone was bad or anything. It's just like, I have been a very entrepreneurial person since I was a kid. I didn't exactly know like what that looked like for me as an adult. So I just was like, I don't know, like, what do I have that I could sell to someone? Like, I really don't know. Yeah. Like for a while I was like, I'm definitely opening a grilled cheesery. That was my thing for a while. But it was like the margins in food so low. And I am also like a slightly nomadic, like minimalist person. So the idea of like owning a food service establishment and all that stuff, like I've never been a homeowner or anything like that. I'm like, I don't really like maintenance, like all those things you have to think about when you have like a brick and mortar business. It's just a different business. Yeah. But that's the type of business that I knew. So once I figured out that I could do virtual, do consulting, do things where I could sit around in my underwear and people would pay me for my brain, I was like, wait, what is going on right now? I didn't know that was really an option. Even though like my dad had been like, you should be a consultant. And I was like, Dad, what does that even mean? Like, what are people going to ask me about? Like, what are you talking about?
And then how much do you charge?
I know. Oh, like, I'm right. I was like, no idea about any of this stuff, which is again, why the community is like so helpful and important, because you can gut check all that stuff and we share resources with each other. And like, I raised my prices like 5 times the past year. And once I was like, oh, I'll raise my prices once a year. And I'm like, no, you raise your prices every time you sell something. Yeah. Like what? Yeah. So it's just, I just know more now, but that was the motivation. It's just like, I did a lot of things that were not values aligned. And I'm not saying, again, nothing was like illegal, right? It's just like, but like value, like someone asking me to do something where I was like, I don't think this is the best way to do this. And it's not the way that I would want to do it or that I think it should be done. And not in like a, argumentative way, but like, especially with communications.
Yeah. The sounds of New York.
I know. It's like this podcast is going to be like just sirens. I'm in like a hospital zone.
Welcome to New York City, everybody.
I know. Bringing it back. I was going to go in like a closet or something, but of course it's New York City, so I don't have a closet large enough to fit me. So sorry for all the sirens.
No, man, that's it's so funny because like I remember hearing that when I first moved to New York. A brief aside. I was in Brooklyn. I was in Brooklyn Heights. That's where the dorm was. And just that was the sound. That was the soundtrack. That was your sleep. That was like, and I come from South Jersey, like the Pine Barrens, like ocean land. Like we lived in front of like a pretty busy like street or like Parkway, technically it was called, but it wasn't. But still, it was just like not sirens like that until like Santa came around, on Christmas. But it was just crazy because I was just like, wow, is it like this all the time? I was like, I don't know if I can handle it, but you just get
24 hours a day. I know. Mm-hmm. We went on vacation and my mom took my daughter for a walk and she was like sleeping in the stroller. And my mom was like, a motorcycle went by. I'm like, Mom. I was like, I was like, she was born on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Like, and that's where she lives now. Yep. Like, I have a video of her laying on the bed when she was a newborn, window open, and like 5 fire trucks went by, and she slept through it all. And I was like, I like texted it to my family. I was like, look at this New York baby. Like, what are we gonna do with her? She sleeps through absolutely everything except me.
Oh yeah,
right. I'll go in the room. Oh yeah, I go in the room and I try to like lay down or whatever, and she's like, "Mom," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like 15 motorcycles would go by, and she's like, "That's cool. It's my nap soundtrack." I'm like, "You are." I know. Like babies are crazy.
Awesome. How old is she now?
She's just over a year and a half, so she'll be 2 in the fall.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
she's awesome. She has her little Liberty Gales Camogie jersey, so
Yes, which for
she's
those of
super
you out
cute.
there, that's how Caitlin and I met. We played camogie or hurling, if you guys know it as that, ancient Irish sport that we still play today. And we met through that team, Liberty Gales, New York, New Jersey. So shout out to them. But if you're in Hawaii, come play Hawaii hurling. Anyway, so Caitlin and I met there. So much fun. Oh man, the community there too, but also just the sport is like just
Amazing.
amazing. So much fun, just fast. Like you don't there's not so many whistles and you just keep playing. Like that's the best part. You get to whack a ball really freaking hard with a big like paddle looking thing, like, and you can kick the ball, you can like hand pass the ball.
Yep,
It's
do whatever you want.
don't get your hands in the way though, because you get hit by a hurley. Like
Yeah, I can't wait for her to play. I'm like, this is gonna be awesome.
oh my gosh, and those little hurleys that they have for
I
like the kids
know,
that are
they're
walking
so
around.
cute. Oh
But
my
we're getting
goodness.
sidetracked, guys. Sorry. But I mean, that's a part of life, and that's a part of what you
Yeah,
can have as an entrepreneur, and even not as an entrepreneur, but like this is your life, and I think your kids become a part of what you're building. You know, it's not like they have to necessarily take it over one day. It's just
yeah,
they get to be a part of that and grow and learn and see the empowerment. So
yeah.
the empowerment that like mom has, and that the partnership that you and her dad have, you and your husband, that's a team. That's
Right.
how it should be. It's just like, let's
Yeah.
support each other. Let's make sure we can get this ball up the pitch.
Yeah, we're the dream team.
Yep, exactly. So, and are you from Canada originally, or
No, I'm from Florida.
you're from sorry, but you played for Canada, didn't you?
I did. We lived in Canada, and my husband and I lived in Canada for a little while. That's why I learned how to play. So I saw it when I was living in Ireland, and then I played football when I got back. But the girls, there's a huge Irish population in Vancouver in Canada, and the girls there were really, really down to teach me camogie. So they spent a lot of time, spent a lot of hours with me trying to get me to understand how to play and get my skills up. And then by the time I got back to New York, I was like, much better. And I felt confident going and trying to play for the Liberty Gales. So yeah, it's good.
So much fun with all of that. And it definitely, like, I think keeps you focused in other parts of your life. You get your exercise, and just also, like I said, just continually like having something to go to and just really exerting yourself in that just capability of being able to just beat each other up a little bit.
Yeah.
Just run into each other. And I think it's really healthy. I think it's really healthy to
beat each other up. But it's true. It's like, I mean, you need that. Obviously, like work-life balance is like a giant like buzz phrase, but like you need your life. You need your whole life and all the different things. And like, I know people are like, oh, I'm going to own my own business, or I'm going to work from home, or I'm going to work for myself so I can, do whatever I want. And I was like, I do whatever I want, but what I want is a lot. I work a lot. And I don't mean I work a ton of hours, but like, so like but I'm grateful for my flexibility of my schedule, but like, it's not all like doing yoga and getting coffee. It's like, I was able to, I did a half marathon recently a couple weeks ago, and I've done 2 since my daughter's born, but like I could only do that because I work for myself. I know people who work full time who do half marathons for sure, but I could only have the entire life that I wanted. So like I trained for the half marathon during the day because I didn't want to run 8 miles on the treadmill. It's not super safe to run at night around here, that far, especially. And I didn't want to do the long runs as much on the weekends because I want to hang out with my family. So I was like, okay, well, the only time I can do it, and like in the mornings as well, people are like, oh, you can run in the morning. I'm like, I drink coffee and watch Eleanor play in the morning. I'm sorry. Like that's a standing obligation that I have for 2 hours every single day. And we gotta get ready for daycare. I don't want to be stressed out. So I would do my long runs during the day, but like in the last couple weeks of training, that was 8 hours a week. I was doing like 3 runs. It took 2 hours, 3 hours to do them, to warm up, blah, 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 blah. So I spent an entire workday a week just running, not grocery shopping and all the extra stuff I had to do. So I work at night, and like I, went for 2 coffees with colleagues yesterday, and I spent 3 hours doing work at night to
Yeah.
quote unquote make up for those hours. So your life is flexible. Like, I do a lot of yoga, I do a lot of exercise because it makes me feel awesome. And I've always been, active since I was a kid. And that's the way I want to live my life. But like, those hours do get made up. So eventually I would love to work I'd love to work 35 hours a week or 25 hours a week, but my income isn't there yet. So that's like the long game, is like, you raise your prices, you get more well-known in the industry, you get more referrals, you make more money, and you get that time, hopefully get that time back, which is why I'm not growing this giant, multi-million-dollar agency, because I want that time for me, not for the business. So that's my like personal goal, right? Like, everyone should know what their goals are going into it. Cause I have peers who are like, nope, I want $1 million business.
Mm-hmm.
And they do stuff, but like, I'm sure they don't have as much free time or time to do other things as I do. Some of them, are like, I put off being in a relationship, or I put off having kids. Like, I put off having kids for my career. So yeah, it's all up to like what your life goals are and whether your activities are aligned with that. So I was talking about values-based stuff before, like, right, my value is to be able to read a lot, to be able to hang out with my family, to be able to exercise, like having that life as a value of mine. And work may have been higher on the values list when I worked for someone else because it had to be, but it wasn't actually.
Yeah.
I would have said like, I love my work, I spend most of my time doing my work, but that wasn't really values aligned. Like right now I have my 4 life values and work is number 4. So like when I was in-house, it was, number 2 maybe after family, and family just felt like it had to be there,
Yeah.
So.
No, it's a good point. And I think that also comes with age and experience. You know, I mean, some people figure it out earlier too. I follow this one girl, I forget her name at the moment, but I think she goes by like, I don't know if it's broke ass horse girl or it's just broke horse girl. But she had like a tech company. She'd been a founder of that. And or I think it's new. I'm sorry. No, she worked for a tech company and then she ended up getting fired because she was making a TikTok and the meeting was in the background. So they ended up firing her.
Really?
Oh because there's a meeting on. I don't even think you caught like a whole lot, but it was still like you just, put it on blast. And then she's like, all right, fuck it. I'm going to make my own business then, which, has to do with horses, which is her life. And I think she is very young still, but there are things that have taken people many years to accept and exude, and she's got that. There's definitely other things in her life that you'll see that she'll be able to learn and understand, but man, like she just doesn't give a shit. Like she does what she needs to do, And obviously like it's on TikTok, it's on these things, so you don't know what really is behind the scenes in their life. They also have those struggles, but I think she's just being real with everybody. She's like, I don't give a fuck. Like this is my life and I'm still making this much money. What are you doing?
Right.
So it's really interesting to see that. And I think I could learn more from that to be able to just be like, go forth and conquer. Don't give so much like care to what others think. And, you're going to learn, like you definitely have to reassess what you're doing, or maybe evaluate would be a better way to say that. Like if things aren't working out or if something keeps happening over and over again, you're like, okay, this can't just be everybody else. What is happening with what I'm doing? Or it could be that what you're doing is fine and these people just aren't aligning with it in the way that you want. Right. And it's frustrating as an entrepreneur because you have that drive of like, take the opportunity. And especially from like New York, New Jersey. So like I said, I'm from Jersey, but I lived and worked in New York for 9-10 years. And you just get that drive of like, don't lose that opportunity. And you should definitely take opportunities, but as you get older, you're able to understand and maybe filter would be the word, to be able to know which ones are going to be more valuable for your time and effort. So don't just take everyone, don't just say yes to everything, unless maybe you're in a rut and you just need to figure out how to weed it out. So maybe saying yes to those things, you'll be like, okay, I don't want to say yes in the future to that. So I think that's helpful. And then Caitlin, for you, I want to go into your first book that you wrote.
Oh, yeah.
Just not really switching gears because you're talking about your goals, right? So you went to school, for English and lots of other fun things, but linguistics and writing was your MFA, right?
Yeah.
So when did I mean you've always been a writer, right? Like since
Yeah.
childhood. So when
Yeah.
did you know you wanted to write a novel?
Sorry, my cat is playing.
Okay, so quickly, I'll say I saw your cat before in the camera, and I thought for 5 seconds it was in my screen. I was like, I don't have a cat.
Where'd this cat come from? We got something delivered yesterday that has a really great box. So she's like,
she loves it.
This box is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I'm like, cool. You can enjoy it for 2 more days, and then it's going in the bin. The toddler also obsessed with the box. They're basically at the same level of development. So yeah, the book, I mean, I had wanted to write, I wanted to write a book since I knew what a book was. I was like, oh, do people, like, I think I remember, like, when I was a kid, I was like, I don't know where books come from. Like, what is that? And then my mom was like, oh, people, like, write them. And I was like, what are you talking about? They're just magic things that you just have. And she was like, no, like a human writes them. Like you can write a story. And I was like, oh my gosh, like people do this with their for what? And she was like, oh, it's a job. And I was like, what? So is it a real job? That remains to be answered. So yeah, like my parents wanted me to go to school for like law or medicine or whatever. And then when I was like, I reject those proposals. They wanted me to do journalism because they were like, you're a writer, but journalism is an actual job. And they were never like, you need to do this thing. They were just like, can you just please use your brain and like think of things other than like Harry Potter? And I was like, I'm not doing journalism because I don't want to be a journalist. So why would I do journalism? I want to be an author. So I'm going to do English. And then I'm going to do all these other minors because my English degree was like 10 classes. And I was like, well, what do I do for the next 3 years? So I did things that I enjoyed. And again, this is like privilege, but also maybe stupidity. And then also being lucky, but also being smart. Like that is the intersection of my life, right? Like I got an English degree. Everyone was like, you're going to be a teacher for $45,000 and you're going to make no money. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like me. Right? I was like, okay. But then I also internalized that. And I was like, okay, I guess that's what English majors do. Like, whatever, like, you'll be an office manager then. And I was like, okay, well, there's nothing wrong with being an office manager. So I was an office manager. That's how I started doing the office admin stuff. And then I was like, well, I mean, I wrote a thesis in undergrad that was like a novella basically. And then I was like, I should go to grad school for writing. And everyone was like, don't do that. It's expensive. And I was like, all right, well then I won't go to that much of an expensive one.
Right.
Like I'm not, I am also like super, super thrifty. So I was really like, I don't really want to, I'm not gonna spend $100,000 on an art degree. I get it. Right. I get that. But like, I still want to do this. So I'm glad that I studied what I enjoyed. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of knocking liberal arts majors and blah, blah, blah. But like, if you like, that's where the entrepreneur thing comes in. Like, I'm a hard worker. Yeah. I just didn't know what I was supposed to be working hard at. Right. So the book publishing industry is difficult and has a lot of things wrong with it. And is, I do have a lot of hangups about like not being, more traditionally published or not being like New York Times bestseller, blah, blah, all this stuff, right? Like everyone who's a writer has all these issues. Yeah. That's a full sentence. Everyone who's a writer has issues. So like, but I was like, you know what? I want to publish a book. So I did, right? So I want to publish another one, which is fine. But I was always kind of like, I don't think that I can sit around and be an author because I know that's not everyone who wants to do that can do that. Yeah. There's just not enough space on earth, So I was like, but I do like a lot of things. So, and I like other things. Like I love traveling. And my writer friends who were like, well, I am going to be a writer. And I'm like, okay, but you have $4. So I want to backpack in Europe and I want to go to the Galapagos and I want, you know what I mean? Like I want to do other things. So I do have to fund that with not novels probably.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of side hustling forever.
Yeah.
Like I've always been writing on the side. So I'm working on another novel now, but like, so that kind of like punky entrepreneurial, like DIY zine making mindset I've always had.
Yeah.
So when it came to doing like the business, I was like, oh, you can just throw up a website and you have a business basically. Like it's true. You can register an LLC, you can put something up and you can sell something if it's something that someone wants or you make them want.
Yeah.
So, which I don't condone making people want things they don't need, but like
you're perhaps just making them see why they want it.
See, right. That's what I have to absolutely, because no one wants to invest in communication strategy, even though it's like the reason everything fails, but whatever.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, oh, we communicate really poorly here. And I'm like, oh, you could pay me to fix that for you. And they're like, what? And it's a long conversation, right? It's not like something obvious to buy. So I don't know, just that idea that, again, I mean, I am spending a lot of time in my business now. I also have my kid. I haven't written a ton in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
But like, it's something I wrote a poem yesterday.
Yeah.
But like long term, right? Like that is the life that I want. I want to have the writer's life. I want to have a creative life. I want to have a writerly life. I want to read. I want to write whatever I'm writing. And I want to keep publishing books. And it's like, I do a lot of yoga and I really like Adrienne Mishler, like Yoga with Adrienne.
Yeah.
And she says a lot in the practice, like, don't decide where it ends.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is super interesting. Like, I'm all about setting goals.
Sure.
But I'm also like, I don't like this fake it till you make it mentality. And I also don't like achieving the goal and then being like, well, I did that. Yeah. So I'm like, if you fake it till you make it, until you hit this giant goal, you never feel like you're doing it right. Like me just writing a poem yesterday, I was like, I'm a writer, like that is writing. I did it. Yeah. So I do want to publish more books, but like, I'm not a writer until I publish a book, and you're not an entrepreneur until you make a certain amount of money, and you're not like, you are doing those things. You are doing them. But yeah, I don't know.
It's valid. Yeah. You're validated in what you're doing. And just because you're not recognized by people yet,
certain people, that's the thing. It's like, right, I go around and I'm like, I mean, I have a friend who traditionally published her book and she has sold exactly as many copies as me.
Yeah.
Like that's just the way it works. So sure. I'm like, and I've, done a lot of other things. I've, done papers about Harry Potter scholarship. And I never thought that was the thing that I'd be able to do. I told my mom when I was in high school, I was like, I want to teach a college course on Harry Potter. And she was like, honey, that's not something that happens. And I'm like, Mom, like obviously now it very much is. And I present at an academic conference every single year with a bunch of professors who teach Harry Potter courses. And I didn't do that because I was like, I don't want to, that's not how I want to do my whole life, but I can still do this thing.
And so enjoy it.
Yeah. And I do the same thing that they do, right? I, have a essay coming out in a collection next year.
Yeah. And it's a work of writing, right? Like we read Voltaire, we read all these other people. It's like, what makes that so different than necessarily Harry Potter? It's like, obviously like, oh, this is phantasmic. It's like, okay, but all these are also like fiction, you know, a lot of them. So it's the story behind it. We learn that as kids, or, we should be, or listening to that. It's like, there's more to the story. Yeah. And I think that's just something that we can always take away from people's stories on here, and just, the books that we read, and just remember there's always more to the story. I think that's a key point here. So don't get necessarily lost in the details, and don't get lost with just the cover. My thing is I get lost in details, and sometimes I just need to take a step back and look at that bigger picture. And so Caitlin, can you please tell everyone on here where they can find you, both either on Instagram or like where they should look to find you in all the things?
All the things. So I have greatly reduced all the things. I was on Instagram and I was on Twitter. I think I still have profiles on them, but I don't really use them. Yeah. I am all over LinkedIn because that's my community, my business tool. Yeah. So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. It's just Caitlin E. Harper is the profile. Commcoterie is on LinkedIn. I mean, everything is on my website, basically. So my contact form and my LinkedIn and everything. So it's just commcoterie.com. That's where everything is.
Which I'm going to link in the description anyway. So you guys can always go in and click on it, especially I think in Spotify and the Apple Podcasts. I think you can click directly on it. YouTube, this is going to be up on as well. I don't know if the links go in there. I have to double check. But if not, again, just copy and paste and also just listen in and we will tell you. So Caitlin, this has been amazing. I have to go teach the virtual kids class from the New York time right now. Not New York Times, guys, but like New York, like Eastern Standard Time.
Eastern Standard Time, yeah.
Could you imagine? But thank you so much for coming on here. And I can't wait to see where you are in another year and hopefully have you on again and do a follow-up and just you can tell all our listeners what's been new because in a year, it's like so many things happen. So I'll be excited to talk with you then.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what you do too, Colo. We miss you. We miss you on the East Coast.
Well, it's nice to know I have fans.
Yeah.
No, but I'm here for you guys, and I'm so happy to see everybody just doing their own thing, and I'm sure we'll be able to do something, maybe some sort of conference, and I don't know.
Awesome.
I feel like there's definitely things on the horizon, so we just all got to keep going and keep working. So.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Caitlin, again, and everyone else out there who's listening. Thank you so much for tuning in and stay tuned for another episode. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. We are here for you, and we're going to keep bringing to you amazing guests such as Caitlin today. So thank you so much and have a great day. Aloha. A big mahalo to all your listeners out there for tuning in to another episode of the Warrior Women in the World of Entrepreneurship podcast. We cannot thank you enough. And it's so important to be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and also to be able to download any of our episodes or the entire series of episodes on either Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this podcast now. And if you're watching on YouTube, that's where you can like and subscribe. Please feel free to leave any preferably positive comments underneath and let us know what you think. Also, please let us know if you have anyone that you'd love to see or hear on this podcast, and we'll reach out to them and hopefully get them on for an episode here. So thank you again so much, guys. We really can't thank you enough. It helps so much more than you realize. So please keep tuning in and please keep sending those positive vibes out. And we hope that you're enjoying this so far and getting so much out of it because we know that we are. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your day, night, evening, wherever you're at. And we can't wait to bring that next episode to you. So stay tuned.